So in this session, as most of you will know, we get lots and lots of requests from members looking for different ways of dealing with our different challenges. The situation continues to change. I think we're over the hump of many of the really big things, but there's still a lot of stuff that we have to take care of. I think that the length of time in which this is going on is taking its toll on people and on businesses in different ways. So with this challenge series, it was really good to bring some people on board that, you know, the experience, the knowledge and the lessons learned, so that we can just sort of share in what it is, know that we're not alone, get some guidance, some advice, and also some inspiration so that we can continue forward and, I guess, bounce forward. I don't think there's going to be any bouncing back to the way we were. I don't think there's going to be what we remember as being normal. Quite frankly, after all this time sitting at my dining room table like this, feels more normal now. So that's what we're doing today. We're joined by Mayor Richter and Craig Neiberding from the Chief Minister's Treasury and Economic Development Directorate. And for ease, just throughout this, instead of just calling it all of that, we'll just call it shared services. And so welcome, Mia and Craig. It's good to have you on board with us. Thank you for agreeing to do this. If, Mia, I'll just start with you, just a very brief bio snapshot so people understand what your background is and where you're from.
So I started with shared services now 7 weeks ago, which is an interesting time, I guess, to start a new role and a new position. But previous to that, I'd worked for the Department of Defence for 9 years, 11 months. Mostly in service delivery, and throughout their sort of call centre areas, face-to-face, back-of-house processing. So in a shared services model of service delivery. So yeah.
Excellent. And what about you, Craig?
So I'm the Senior Director of Customer Support Services here for Shared Services in the ACT Government. Which encompasses several different areas, of which one of them is the service desk. The main reason, well, I suppose I'm here today to assist is, as you heard, Mia just sort of joined 7 weeks ago and wasn't here during the pandemic, like when it all hit. And my previous service desk manager decided pre-COVID hitting to sort of step back. So I hadn't done any recruitment in that space, so I sort of filled the void. So it was a bit of a turmoil time, but in my customer support services, I'm also responsible for the website, customer experience and business improvement across the organisation. I've always been in a service delivery arm. Used to be very focused on ICT as an embedded ICT manager. Once again, service delivery, but with an ICT focus. But since moving across, I'm now spared across all of shared services. But yeah, so it's different.
Okay, so, cool. Yeah. So you ready to dive into the interview?
Easy.
Excellent. We had a really good talk last time. It was great. Let's break it down into the different types of challenges. So we'll start with business challenges. How have, and it'll be different for both of you. So, you know, Mia, after 7 weeks or so, plus your defence experience, it'll be interesting to compare and contrast, I guess, the two experiences as well. So how has the business model changed for you so that you've been coping with the change in working at home? Because there are a lot of businesses now that are trying to flatten structures a little bit. They've had to change their actual organisation structure a little bit and change the model in the way that they work. How has that happened for you guys?
Did you want me to take this one, Mia, or did you want to talk about what we're doing now?
You take this one.
Okay. So with the business model, obviously, historically, well, not historically, there's pre-COVID and there's current. So it really, the way we had to adapt our service offerings and what we had to do. So previously, we're a service delivery branch. We have multiple channels for engagement to deliver our services to our customer: phone, email, chat, and face-to-face, as well as on-site. So we go and fix computers. We actually had to adapt our whole business model to change what services we actually provide our customers because they're no longer in the office. So how do we do that? What's that look like? How do we work through that? We had to shift resources into different channels because obviously now people are not in the office. We don't need as many people on site. So the whole operating model and the way we deliver our service had to be rethought. What it did, it actually amplified where we were heading. So we knew what we were going to introduce these on-site models anyway. We're going to have like an Apple Genius Bar type concept. Still their idea, why not? So we're going to try and introduce these concept bars, and we'll bring in resourcing in for our new super building, and then all of a sudden COVID happened, and we've just built a 6-story ABW building, which we weren't going to be able to use as effectively as we're going to. So we had to think, well, how can we deliver the services, and how do we adapt them? But what we actually did, we sort of learned, we took rather than just start from fresh, we actually took what we had already invested in and thought, how can we re-engineer that? So how can we do it in a COVID-safe way? So now we don't need to visit people's workplaces because they're not there. How can we get people to drop in? So we had to develop new ways of working. So we established what we called drop-in hubs. We established 4 of them across Canberra where people would drop in, and we'd have to do it in a COVID-safe way. So we did social distancing. So where we couldn't just go and visit the customer anymore. That option's now gone. Yeah. If we couldn't solve it over the phone, well, how do we solve it? So we did that. We negotiated contracts with a courier so we could courier different services to actually their house. We never visited people's houses, but we had to rethink all those sort of things that we just took for a given, right? And customers still expect the same service. Well, just because I'm not in the office, why can't you come to my house? Well, there's a whole lot of risk around that, right?
I was going to actually ask you about that. What has been that change in both? Well, there's 2 expectations here that you're managing. There's the business expectation, so and your customer expectation, and then there is the expectation around the support in terms of your performance levels as well. So how has the business expectation of your support changed for the team through this pandemic?
So as for the business expectation, what's actually surprising is we have actually been given more leniency. So before we were getting reprimanded for SLAs. We've all got SLAs, we've all got our ASA targets or whatever KPIs we're working towards, we've all got them. The minute we don't meet them, we have to talk through why we haven't met them, what was the consequence, like put the minutes up. Now it's like we understand we're with you. Like it's a lot more leniency from the directorate. So we obviously deliver a service to AC government directorates, including health and all those other. The leniency we got from them. So it was actually their expectations reduced, but they still needed the service. So it was a bit of a hit and miss. Like depending on the directorate, we really put a lot more effort into health. So I funneled my research. Everything for health got prioritised, obviously. But the other directorates understood. And I think it was interesting to watch. But we had to prioritise all health work because we also do access control. We do a lot of IT stuff for them as well. Plus we built a new hospital in 40 days or something insane.
Wow.
It's a tent hospital, but it's a hospital nonetheless. We had to support that. So how do we put people there? Not only that, we also had staff like that. This is new. People are scared. I don't want to go to work. I want to work from home. Yes, we still had we shift. So we really had to look at, well, who do we shift to work from home? Who do we shift to work on site? Because we still have that business to deliver. And it was a really interesting time.
What about for you, Mia? How has it been for you and your team through this? I mean, in the last 7 weeks, and then comparing it perhaps to, what was going on with defence, you got stuck right in the middle of that shift. So how different has it been for you?
I think there's a stark difference to the way defence was able to respond. So, ACT Gov had the technology and especially in the call centre, had tried and tested sending staff to work from home. Defence's telephony system was not in a spot where you could send anybody to work from home. So the expectation definitely was that people were still in the office taking phone calls. And some of the staff could be sent home if they were like face-to-face staff. And so what we tried to do was channel better channel management. So encouraging customers, if your call is not urgent, why don't you send us an email, and somebody will get back to you within like 4 hours with an email. But interestingly enough, that IVR messaging only got about, on a good day, 8% was our max of people who dropped. And on our worst day, 4% of people who dropped out and opted for an email channel. So, and the calls that were coming through were different, but certainly I wouldn't say urgent enough that you would stay on the line. But we experienced such a high call volume that, and the hardcore telephony people will gasp in shock, but we chose a couple of skill sets and started diverting those skill sets wholly off-site to back-of-house sort of processing centres, people who had never traditionally taken a phone call, to their hunt group. We set up little hunt groups off-site, and then so that the calls would be sent off-site to a hunt group, and then that was it, you know, like kind of like good luck to them to answer it. But it was it was to try and manage our volumes, because our volumes just went through the roof. And like I said, people weren't opting to take the email option. And so to deal with the calls that we had to be dealing with, all the calls that were urgent and about COVID, and supporting people through the COVID, then we were sending those other non-urgent skill sets away. Yeah. So it was interesting, very interesting.
And how are you finding it where you are now, that, you know, that business expectation on your team? What's been your team's response to that? How are they feeling through this?
Well, like I said, ACT Gov was so well set up for it. They're just so agile, right? So, you know, if you need somebody to work from home, they can work from home, and all the equipment is there and set up, and it's just, it lends itself to it, which has meant basically that, you know, the majority of our workforce is still working from home. We're still providing good service, and, you know, we're accommodating people's needs as well as continuing on with, like I said, the good service. Like the feedback that we get here is phenomenal, and people are really appreciative of, you know, being able to reach out and get help. But whilst they're also struggling sometimes with working from home and all of their IT issues. So what the guys are seeing on the desk, though, is, you know, a change in the sort of IT issues that they are having to deal with, because people working remotely, you know, they have sometimes internet issues. It's their own internet, right? So, exactly, you know, right. The desk goes, I don't know your Wi-Fi password. Like, you should know your Wi-Fi password. So
it's actually, that's kind of cool. That does bring up another business challenge in itself, because organizations have come into the home space now. And, you know, and I mean, to the point, far more than we would ever have imagined, that work has really taken over a lot of what we do. So what kind of support, like from shared services, what is it that you guys have done that makes that better for the team, working from home better? Because it's not just working from home, it's trying to work from home, if you know what I mean, because you've got your normal home stuff. Some of them might still be homeschooling kids and all of that sort of thing. So what are the changes that shared services has made to, I guess, not be so intrusive in the home space, but at the same time, yes, we still have to work?
Did you want me to take that one, Mia?
Yep, jump in.
Okay. Yeah, well, look, so what we did at the transition time is, so obviously we all had our pre-COVID, the organisation had policies to work from home. You had to have a work from home assessment. So how did shared services support the transition to working from home? They quickly implemented models to allow a really quick transition, so you could do your own self-assessment once you get home. But now we're finding people at home. We're people, right? We're human. We like the interaction. We need people interaction apart from just the job interaction. There's two elements here. There's the job. We talk to people all day on the phone. That's what they do, but they still like the team. So what we did as part of the business challenge, what I did I actually created a brand new role I forget what I called the title of the role. We've dissolved it now because we've sort of this is the new operating, this is the new way we work. But it was a it was a resource manager. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
I created a resource manager role that's their sole responsibility was to check in with every staff member every day to see how they're going, because they needed that check-in, they needed that interaction, and that's just the human nature. What we also found is I actually, even for my own management cohort, I found my meetings were just going overtime because everyone was waffling because they just wanted that human interaction. So, okay, how do we do that? Well, I had 2 meetings a week rather than 1, but we had a set agenda item. Hey, what's going on? How's your cat? How's your dog? Because that mental health is so important. But the organisation as a whole, Shared Services, especially now as we're getting, we thought this was going to be a month, then we thought it was going to be 2 months, and here we are 6 months in. We're running a lot of resilience training courses, and even myself, I'm an extrovert. I need people. But it's how to. So that's how I suppose we're supporting the people, and it is hard. I've given my website team more flexibility, obviously, because they're output driven. But as for a service desk, we still need to man the phones 7 to 7, right, or 7 to 6. So how do we do it? It's still roster based. They still get their breaks, but it's in their home environment, and they're just doing a lot. What we actually also introduced, which was really good. This is a actual artifact or a side effect, which I didn't expect. We had a big new workforce. Like it sort of just all hit. For us, I would like to say it was great planning, but there was a lot of just coincidence there. But we had a lot of new people come in, and what I found is when they were in the office, they were asking a lot of questions because we have a knowledge base that's all good and well, but it's easy to ask the person next to you. But when they actually went home, we had a chat channel. We all use Teams. We actually found that Teams channel, people were searching questions which other people had asked, and they stopped asking questions. They became more productive. And that was just a consequence of that. Yeah, it was really interesting. So rather than saying, oh, how do you do this? They would go to type the question in the channel, but just search it and someone else has already asked, because we get a lot of repeat issues, I suppose. So, but as for supporting them, we do a lot more touch-ins, a lot more communication because they are isolated. The organisation as a whole are doing resilience training. I haven't personally done it yet, but the offer's there. I'm also seeing a lot more emails from our SES executive all the way up. Like it's a really regular occurrence where before it was probably every 3 weeks. Now I'm seeing it weekly. So it makes you feel still involved and part of the team.
Well, I mean, let's stick with that theme at the moment. And Mia, feel free to jump in at any time with any of this stuff. When we think about how you kept your teams engaged and, what has the actual strategy been around the communications? Because many of the organizations with the different software, so you're using Teams, I use a whole mix because I work with different clients. So I've got, Zoom and Teams and Mural and Slack, and I'm getting so many more apps on my desktop. It's not funny. But the technology has been improving as well because they've noticed they need to have things like make their chat searchable in such a way that it's easy to get to those sorts of answers. So what have been those specific things you've done when you've had new people come in, or helping the others shift the way that they collaborate?
So the onboarding process, and sorry, Mia, I might throw to you, but we have changed it. We did actually do a whole recruitment campaign. We did the recruitment, the interviews, everything remotely, and then even the training was done remotely. They've never stepped foot in the office, I don't believe. This is mainly on the finance service desk. But Mia, were you involved in the latest round for finance, or you're not really across that?
I'm not across the finance one.
No, okay. Well, so what we actually did do this at the beginning. So we actually had to onboard people remotely, especially because we had to scale up. So our volumes went through the roof when COVID hit. They still haven't really come back down. So we had to onboard a few extra staff and had to do that training remotely. But with the tools that we had on hand, they actually did Teams meetings. We used Teams. Teams meetings, they shared screen and actually talked the user through it. And so we did it all remotely. And like I said, the chat, we also have chat as one of our engagement channels. So rather than putting them straight on the phone, because we generally, part of our training is, you piggyback. I forget what the terminology is. I'm not a call center person.
Buddying up.
Buddying up. Yep. They do the buddy up for like 3 days. But what would they, and then chat, it's always sort of used as a reward because people love to do chat. I don't know. Anyway, not my cup of tea. But they would put people on chat so they can ask questions in a more comfortable way without a person on the phone, and they upskill that way. But we, honestly, from my perspective, I haven't seen any issue with the way we've onboarded staff. It's been smooth. The feedback's been really positive, and the transition has actually been quicker because of the Teams chat channel. It was called an Ask Us for Help. They could search it, and all the questions are generally there. Yes, our knowledge base should be better, but 10 people don't put effort into that. Where the chat is just that, it's a chat. It's been really good.
Yeah, got a really good question here actually from Janine. So, how have those actual induction processes changed for new staff during the period? But I think a key question that's really cool here is how, because everything's done remotely and you're actually not getting that normal sense of, feeling the buzz of an office, because, when you walk in and you get to know where the coffee machine is and, using the photocopier and all that kind of, they're little things, but they're things that how you start to become feeling at home in your new role. So how are you embedding the cultural norms and the values that you guys have with new starters? So
at the beginning, we obviously didn't really focus on that, but right now, I know Mia's doing a lot of work in this space. We're actually surveying our staff to see now, because we're now 6 months in, right? What are they thinking? How are they feeling? So they've actually just developed a survey. Mia, did you want to just go over that a bit on what we're looking at there?
Yeah, so we still do have a couple of people in the office. Most of our workforce is working from home, and now that it's less of a novelty, some people have asked if they could come back in because they're missing that social interaction environment, support stuff. Other people have indicated that they're happy working from home, but what we wanted to do is get their feedback on what we could be doing better. So we're asking a range of questions around, if you're at home, how's the communication? How are you being supported? What can you suggest? Do you have any concerns about returning to the workplace once it's, all COVID safe, all that kind of stuff? And then sort of the same questions for people who are in the office. What are you finding good, different, or otherwise? And I guess it's because with a workforce that's a little bit split between home and office, you can't concentrate on the one support or communication channel. It's, the people in the office still have a floor walker, but how do you translate floor walking into an at-home environment? It's how sort of thing.
Isn't this where we all have our little home AIs?
But it's that sort of stuff that, I think, when it was fresh and new, everyone was sort of happy to sort of chug along and put up with the things that were annoying them. But now that it's looking a little bit more permanent, and it's dragging on a little bit, we just want that feedback from the staff. And if they have any suggestions, if we can do it, then we'll take it on, because I don't think anyone's an expert here on how to run this the way it is, right? So we're willing to sort of try anything.
Yeah, it's I've got another question popping up in the chat. I'll come to that in a moment. When you were, Craig, talking about this resilience program, because interestingly in the industry we're talking about resilience in two ways. We've got the site reliability stuff and resilience within our we'll get to the technology bits, but from a people perspective, has that resilience program only just started in very recently because it has been dragging out?
Yeah, I think the first offerings I saw popped up about 3 weeks ago, and now they're running the program every week, so you can enroll in it. So I think that's what's happened, right? We thought this was just going to be, well, not even thought, who knows what people thought, but it was going to be short term. Like Mia said, we're tolerant, we'll just do it, we'll get it. But now it's dragging on. So initially, obviously, we all probably, I know everyone, we saw sick leave reduce, right? Because people were like, well, sorry, my computer just died. I'm back. It's just going on. Sick leave dropped because everyone's like, oh, I have a sniffles, I'll just stay home, but I can still work. Where previously they'll take a sick day rather than come in the office. But now we're 6 months in, people are like, oh, I'm sick, I'm not going to work. So we're now getting back to the norm, but people are still missing. So it's, yeah, that training has only come up in the last 3 weeks. And I think that's to sort of build the resilience, because this is going to be the new norm. Well, it's not going to be the new norm. We will return to somewhat normality. How do we return to that? What's it look like? We're sort of still working through that. But we're lucky in regards to, we do have the ability and space to, if people want that interaction. So I'm coming in the office now a day a week. That's not an instruction, but that's for me. I need the people element and to see people. Yes, I can do the work at home, but how do we rotate those people? And I suppose that's why we're conducting our own survey of our own staff. Well, do people want to start coming back in? How can we do that? And then actually come up with a plan to transition back. So we had a great transition out plan.
Yeah,
but now we've got to start looking at that transition in.
Well, that's actually Michael's question. How are you managing that return to work? Because, you know, are you allowing users to retain their equipment at home while they're hot desking? So it's not just the return to work of your own staff, it's also return to work of, you know, the staff that you're supporting. So do they keep the equipment at home? Is it like, are we going to have duplicates? Do they just...
Once again, circumstances, right? We were really lucky. In the Territory, we were actually just establishing a brand new, what they called, so we're Dixon office block. So it's a centralised building. It's going to be a big ABW building, all brand new equipment, and that's set up. And I actually have about, I think, 7 people in that staff in that building, with all brand new kits. We had all this old kit, about 700 monitors, 1,000, which we're going to decommission, but we've repurposed that to people's homes. So we've got the 2 environments running concurrently, so we can actually support a transition, swings and roundabouts both in. All of majority of ACT government staff also had laptops. So that's easy, portable, move in. All we need in the office is a monitor and a dock. So as for transitioning their kit, they can actually still retain it for a limited time. It's just how we do that and look at that. We also have work that we can rotate them in. When they're in site, they don't actually have to jump on the phones. We have field work they can do, because we're not just a call centre. We also support field technicians, so we can rotate them and support them that way. But I'm really interested to see the results of the survey we're conducting across the team.
Well, you've actually just touched on a question that Katrina has about handling the hardware requests, like laptops and that sort of thing, both for new starters and for people even the people that have left business in the last 6 months, you know, need to return the equipment. So I know we've touched on it. Can you talk about that courier system that you implemented?
So with the courier system was more so if we had people that we support staff in directorates, right? TCCS, people that maintain our roads, people that maintain the hospitals. If we have staff that are in isolation, their laptop's not working, but they still need to work. In actual fact, we even had someone call from the Central Coast, but we now have staff working everywhere, not just in the Territory. So we actually established a courier service. So if your laptop's broken interstate, I won't actually go into the pricing, but it was a really good deal. But so the courier would pick up that laptop. So from your house, if you can't make it to one of our drop-in centres, you're not in a workplace, well, I'm not sending my staff to your house for obvious reasons. We established a courier service. They'll come to your house, they'll pick it up, we'll bring it back, we'll sanitize it, we put sanitizing practicing in, we'll try and resolve the issue and courier it back to the person without any, it's just a complete change. We also used to deliver the iPads, laptops. Once again, why are we sending our staff out to do that when we can use a courier service at a cost? Transfer the risk, deliver a better service. So that's all worked out really well, and it's allowed us to do areas that we never thought we had to. So we also support Jervis Bay, little unknown. How do we support Jervis Bay when you can't cross it into New South Wales, or what happens if there's a restriction there? So once again, we've tried to do that. We're trying to resolve all their issues remotely where possible, and use a courier service to ship items back for us to diagnose the issues. It's just the new way of working.
From a technical perspective, I always think that's really interesting, because a lot of the knowledge and everything that we gather and the skill sets that we bring together, because we're working with the customers time. You're visiting on site, you with them, you're checking things out, and you gather really good knowledge from that you can share in terms of solutions and that type of stuff. How different or easy is it now for your support calls? I mean, are you handling different types of support calls that you didn't have previously?
Yeah, so the type of support calls, yes, we definitely are handling different ones. Like my people will call up with their printer they bought from some shop that we don't know the drivers. How do we do this? Well, we don't even know that printer anymore. Like Mia said earlier on, their network, what's my Wi-Fi password? Like the support calls, we are the web, my Teams isn't working.
Isn't that where you go to the little white or black box and underneath turn it up and there's this and it, you know, this thing.
I can't tell you how many times I've heard that across the desk, right? Like, even I know how to do that now, right?
But what we're also finding, our average handle time's gone up. So not only has our volume gone up, but our average handle time's gone up from 8 minutes and we're up around 12 minutes. And that's because the calls are more complex. Or to remote in, before when you're on the ACT government network, it's easy. We know we can just remote straight in. It's quick, connect, accept. Now we're having to use different technologies depending on what connection they're actually using to remote to their PC. So it's a connection, the calls are longer. So that's what we're actually finding is now our call average handle time's up. Our volumes are up. So how do we actually manage that? Deliver the service that we're trying. It's a different way, but we're slowly now it's returning back down. Not because more people are coming into the office, but we're getting used to it. The issues are different. Initially when we started, everyone was calling up, how do I do this? How do I connect to my Wi-Fi? Can I still print? I have a weird printer. Can you help me with the drivers? But now business as usual is returning. Now it's just my graphics card's broken, or I've lost my C key has popped out, or my kids spilled drink on my laptop.
Business as usual. So, question from Michael on here. How you manage the absolute non-tech people. As we're just talking about, even just teaching them the location of this is where you find your Wi-Fi password on your modem. Just those sorts of things, and assist them in plugging their equipment together and stuff. Like, are the couriers actually tech couriers where they can also do that?
They're pure. So that's where we've got great staff on the service desk with a lot of patience. I can't do it, but they kill it. They I listen to it, and if you ask me, I get a big smile because there's just you hear them step through it. Have you done this? There's a blue cable. Plug that in here. Have you plugged it in here? And if all else fails, how about you drop into one of our hubs and we'll show you through it? Or
hey, tell us more about the hubs then, because that's directly, that's a solution to this.
Yeah, so the hubs and I like it just to Apple Genius Bar. So we established these purely as a surge. We can't go on site. We can't go to your house just due to risk. So, okay, the hubs, everything was bookable because we had to make sure we had a COVID register, who came in contact with who and everything. So now we're moving into a space where before everything was reactionary. So we just help, we help. Now we're moved into a world where we're booking everything. But that's not going to go away. This is the new normal. So how do we now transition that up? So bookable allows us to manage our workforce better too, because if we're starting to book appointments, so before something broke, one of my techs would just rock up at your desk. You don't know when, you don't know, but now everything's bookable. So we have that track and that history. So how do we actually now take that forward? Everything's bookable. We know when we get our peaks, we can actually now allocate more people onto phones if we need to in the morning. And so this is now becoming the new normal. So on our website, we're delivering a standard service, but with bookable times. So we're having more sites pop up. So Mia, I noticed without telling me, launched 2 new sites this week to have bookable times.
You found them. You found them on the thing.
I did find them. But this is the new norm now. So it allows our customers to actually, I'm going to book at this building at this time to pop in and go get my laptop issue. And it actually tells us what the issue is. They can do all that from our website. So that's a completely new service. But now that's not going to go away. How do we make it? Now I'm really pushing Mia. I want it like the dishwasher repairman. I know when they're on their way. They send me an SMS before they rock up at my house. How do we now roll that out to be the next phase as people transition back? So, it's really interesting.
And so there's that physical side. So Alex is asking, the remote control tool that you actually acquired to support users outside the corporate network. That's the tricky one.
So, well, no. Well, with the AST government, we're actually really lucky in regards, like I said before, we had transitioned, they made the executive decision a number of years ago to issue everyone with laptops as their desktops replaced. And no matter what network you connect to, as long as you're on an AST government laptop, you're technically connected and authenticated to the AST government network, even if you're not. It's, I call it IT magic in the background, right? I can connect to McDonald's network and then I'm actually on AtGov. It's got a direct access straight through. So
is that a name of a software? IT magic? That'd be cool.
But what we did find is because the connection protocol, our normal connection, don't know what they use, I think it's called remote assist, was not working because it had an IP conflict with the remote connection software. So depending on their connection, they actually use WebEx, Cisco WebEx remote. They use Windows 10 remote assist if the user's on Windows 10, so that's actually built into the SOE, and it also allows people to use the home computers as well if they're not authenticated on the network. So they're the sort of technologies that we use to get around that. We always had them at our disposal, but never used them. So if anyone's on Windows 10, they use Windows Remote Assist, and they give an ID, and that works across any network. Or if sometimes that wouldn't work, or like you say, there is because you have to relay a code, and if that's hidden behind a window, we had different user bases that couldn't even find that. We'd use WebEx, Teams, So we didn't settle on one product.
Yep.
We gave multiple options to work out what was best for our customer.
See, that's something that I really enjoy. And it's not just the multiple products that we have to sort of be juggling, if you like, because that gives us the flexibility, doesn't it? It gives you the agility to be able to do what you want to do. But that leads to, some other questions. As you mentioned, your handle times went up because now you've got different types of support calls on top of your kind of normal ones as well. Plus the fact, even today we noticed as we were starting the Zoom session and that sort of thing, that you have to allow, and for me in doing remote training and workshops, we have to allow an extra 20 to 30 minutes sometimes on either side, mostly at the start, to check people's, is your audio working? Is your visuals working? What kind of connectivity issues you might have. So it is taking longer to do some things now. So question from Janine, and I guess a lot of other people have the same. Have you already changed, or are you considering changing SLAs? Because of that type of thing?
Not yet. Our SLAs and our KPIs still exist in the current form. We have put up a paper to suggest changes to that regard, not just due to COVID, just more so, and I'm sure we've all identified, we all used to focus on average speed of answer, but what value does that deliver to the customer, right? So we're trying to move along with industry and suggest some more alternative approaches. Throughout this whole thing, I've just been driving feedback. Although it's not a formal metric, it's important to me, it's important to customers. We are in the process of actually advising new SLAs, but we're also looking at new tools too. So we're looking at going to a different course center solution. I'm pushing it. We'll see how we go. Which will actually, instead of just route calls based on the last person you spoke to. So if you call back within 3 days, you might be routed to that same operator, so you get a more of a case management feel. However, the ASA then is irrelevant, right? Because you might be queued for a couple extra minutes, but you're going to get that nice warm feeling because you're going to say, oh, I remember you from yesterday. Yes, we did discuss that. This is how we're going to help. But formally, we've got informal changes implemented throughout the period. Also, when the period hit, everyone wanted to know our KPIs. Like, everyone wanted to know the volumes. Like, it became, I was just reporting to one person to reporting to 100 people. Everyone got interested in it, but now they can see our volumes and we're much more visible. We actually got recognised by a Chief Minister Head of Service Award for the way we coped, because our volumes went through the roof. I think our chat channel went up 1,000% since December. Wow. So Yeah, so that's a chat channel. Mind you, our calls, although we got presented with a lot of calls, we couldn't handle them. So we were diverting people to chat. But as for formal, we haven't changed them yet, but we are looking at all our KPIs across the desk, not just due to COVID, but just moving in line with industry and expectations.
Yeah.
I did formally propose feedback be one of those, and that did get endorsed last week. So we're moving towards more of a quality.
Yeah, and it's very interesting because I think because industry-wide, there are a lot of things changing in terms of our measurements and reporting and how we're managing the workforce, so resource measuring, that type of stuff. Customer experience, or you'll see a lot around CX. You'll see a lot of measuring and statistics around that. So I know that HDAA on the monthly newsletter where you can check in on the articles and stuff, have a look at a lot of the articles around CX or customer experience. That is becoming a really big focus industry-wide on a global level now, because as you said, average speed to answer, it's only an indicator. It doesn't actually tell us whether there's value in the relationship or value in the call, or how quickly you might have a longer wait time, but the time to find a solution might be faster. Or, there's so many factors that come in, what I usually call the anatomy of a call. If I looked at the anatomy of a call, there's so many different parts. The average speed to answer, how fast is my knowledge base searching so I get the solution, or how fast am I able to problem solve? How long do I keep them on hold back and forth? There's all these tiny little measures that we've always been so good at doing. We can't take them out of context. We can't just look at one measure and go, they're just there to say, hey, what's going on here for a minute. I'd rather the experience of that whole call is a far better indicator of value.
And that's why I think the customer feedback is such an important indicator, because what you just described, all those metrics that we've all been measured against, RFC is this, our wait time's this, that it all comes down to one, if the customer is satisfied, we've delivered the best possible service we could for that customer. If they're dissatisfied or unknown, then we can do better. So, and then analyze. Then it's up to us to analyze that. And Mia's actually much more across that.
Well, I've just been going through some of the data because we're doing a bit of a benchmarking exercise. So we snapshotted the last 6 months, so it's interesting. Counterintuitive is on our HR service desk, which is part of the service desk. Resolved on first contact over March was the highest it's ever been. So you look at it and you go, like, why is that? And the answer to that is simply the types of questions that were coming in were very well supported by knowledge articles and processes, because people put a focus on all of those COVID type questions in the HR space. So, the HR desk has gone whoop for resolved on first contact, and then slowly as, the normal questions start coming through, they've gone down again. So they're all, the HR team is like, oh, our resolved on first contact is less now. But, it's nothing to be sad about. It's just going back to normal. But it really does speak to, if you've got really good resources, really good knowledge, really good processes in place, and the focus on that.
It's certainly something I've seen industry-wide, and I mean globally, where the focus on knowledge management has become a necessity rather than sort of a nice to have, because people always seem to think that knowledge is something separate, to what we do, and say, no, we're already doing knowledge. We're already solving issues. It's just about managing the knowledge in a better way so that we can have better first contacts where it's possible. But there is some industries where that first contact is not going to be possible. Solution solving is not going to be possible because it's not in the nature of the call. So here you guys, you've got all your hardware requests to deal with. That's not a first contact solve. So
or
getting
Office
hung
365
up,
yesterday.
Exactly. So getting hung up on, wow, I've got to have a first contact percentage of X. you've really got to look at it in the context of the types of calls that you're dealing with as well. So I think that's a critical thing. I'm now going to, it's looking from a time perspective, there's a couple of other questions in here, but I want to now just open it up to the floor. So guys, this is when you should bring your video on, just like we would be if we were at a networking event anyway. We'd be able to see each other and talk with each other. So bring your videos online, come off mute, start peppering your questions, and let's have a little bit more of a network style session where you can pepper me and Craig as much as you like. And while people are doing that, I will come to a couple of other questions on here that I have. Fab's asking, you know, when people come into the office, do you ask them to actually come into the office to make up for a day that they took unscheduled leave when they were due to work in the office, or do you actually have that where they have to be or not be? I can see Mia go, no. No, we're pretty flexible.
You know, so our teams that have been on site, that have to be on site, have been fairly stationary, if that makes sense. So we're not, we haven't been rotating like we normally would. Normally people would get to go to different spots and do different things on a sort of much regular basis. We've been kind of quite stable over the last 6 months, so that, you know, the team that supports the hospital only stays at the hospital. The team that supports the education areas only sort of stays there. So, you know, keeping that COVID safe mentality in place, that you only roam where you kind of need to, you don't travel around too much, or that kind of stuff. So that's the kind of approach that we've taken, of not trying to move people around too much.
Yeah. Fabio's got a good little question here about keeping staff motivated. I know you talked about some of the initiatives you had, like you mentioned a resource manager originally to check in on staff, what's being done, etc. Because mental health is still a big thing. As I said, Craig, it's like being isolated is just crazy. And not having that, it's not quite the same water cooler conversation, you know, as you walk into the lunchroom or as you're passing each other down the corridor. Those little chit-chatty conversations aren't really occurring as much as we would probably like, as a result of working remotely like we are. So that resource manager role, do you think, is it still something that would be good to have, that kind of liaison? Or is this new resilience program enough, or what do you think?
I'll flick to Mia in a sec, but I will talk about, just to cover off two of the questions that just came in. So the resource manager role has sort of gone on, it's ended, and we've transitioned to business as usual. However, what we have done, and mental health, I'll try and let Mia cover that bit, but we've now, so our floor walker, as Mia said before, we used to have a floor walker. How do we bring that into the home? How do we ensure important initiatives are relayed? We now do an informal, well, I call it informal. I saw it, I didn't come up with this, I guess Mia or the team did it, but I'm included in the distribution, and I love it. It's an informal email. Here's the hot topics. Here's what's going on. Here's where the donuts are today. Like, it's sort of an email that makes you feel, well, I'm not even part of the team, but I have to read it and go, oh, I didn't know that. Or Office 365 went down yesterday. I can't believe, like, it's sort of that, it's a sort of a check-in in a way, but they've also got their team meetings, which they have a lot more regularly now. Like, we're looking at the structure. So before, we used to have the structure. I'm on site, I'm in the on-site team. I'm on the call center, I'm in the call center team. Now that sort of, and me is working through this, is they're actually having teams with set structures. No matter where you are, you report to one manager. So they're sort of working through that to give that well-being consistency. And as for the question about the on-site, how do we deal with the mental health of those that didn't want to be on-site? We never once said, due to your work, you have to be on-site. We actually gave everyone the option up front to those who weren't worried. Hey, so we did a bit of rotation at the very beginning of this to make sure people were in positions where they felt comfortable. Although we could have, we never mandated that, oh, you're at health, you stay there, because there's no way I would be there personally, but they were comfortable. The team we had out there were like a family, and they wanted to stay there and do their best. Like I said, it's really good. We have excellent staff. But Mia, did you want to cover off the mental health, what we're doing at the moment with the check-ins, or where we're at?
So we've kind of changed the way that we also do ringing up. It used to kind of go to like this generic spot. They used to kind of say that they're calling in sick, but their manager never used to actually call them back and have a conversation about it. Because, you know, it was kind of expected that the next day you'd be in the office, but the next day you're not going to be in the office. So there was not that contact. So now we've changed that so that they email in at the beginning of the day, but their manager actually has to call them back and they have to have the conversation and touch base about how they're going. And it makes that thing that would have been something that happened normally actually happen when they're, you know, apart.
Yeah.
I
guess more visibility, isn't it, in a way? Because if I call in sick, or I just send an email or the chat. I mean, this is the other thing I've been seeing across the industry. There is, people are creating their WhatsApp groups, as well. So all the different channels, whether it's WhatsApp or it's Slack or something like that. So something that I've noticed is they're creating within those, whichever tool it happens to be or whichever technology they happen to use, that they're creating special discussion forum areas where it is being off sick, or there's a feedback channel just for staff, or there's, they're joining their particular areas where they can have that. For a private, I think private conversations, it's good that I've seen a lot of managers now specifically scheduling a call in the calendar. No more of this, I'll get to it, and then you get caught up doing something else. That you make the intentional effort to put that in the calendar. This is a call that is going to be made today, regardless. So I think there's a couple of different things that are happening out in the industry that are, as a result of this, are actually worthwhile and are being kept going, I guess, because it will. Are you finding it would naturally improve the relationship because they're getting that call back, for example?
I think so. And I've just noticed people are more aware of if people are online or not. So there's a lot of talk about, that person, and it's not from a monitoring perspective. It's like, that person isn't at work yet. They're 20 minutes late, like haven't logged in. I wonder if they're okay. So then you go, to HR and you find their next of, emergency contact, all that kind of stuff. People are a lot more conscious about if people not have turned up to work, but haven't showed up to work. Like,
yeah, they're not visible.
Yeah. So, we had a person on an amenities break for an hour, and, everyone was like, are they okay? Like, they've gone, but is everything okay in their home? Because you're conscious that they might not live with other people. So there's I've found a lot more checking up on people just as welfare checks for the lateness, the absences, that sort of thing, because they know that there might not be somebody else to check on them. We had a person in late the other day, and one of the managers was ready to go to their house and sort of knock on the door to make sure, because it was just so out of character. But their phone had stopped charge.
Being aware, I think the awareness level has risen around what are the signals now that I have to look for that the person is okay or not okay. I think we're far more aware of what those signals are, because the visibility is not there about whether you're online or not. I think, Craig, this question, you might want to answer this one. I've got a technical one in here about from Alex about the prominence and increase in use of SaaS. Like, say the platform's down, what's your alternative notification systems that you use?
So what we did yesterday, prime example, right? Day before, whenever it was, seems like my nightmare. We have a shared services website where people come in to interact, to engage with us either by web form, to get our data. We put a banner up on there, which it didn't go down, thankfully. It was an on-prem hosted, so we put our banner up there. We IVR, obviously, straight away. People call us the minute something goes blip. Just it's easy to call us. We'll live chat still. So we just put an IVR up to advise people we're aware of this. We did do a mail out, but we know some people didn't get it. What was a little bit different to what we normally do, we normally refer people back to our status pages. But being a SaaS offering, what value could our status page offer? So we actually linked it straight to the Microsoft Office status page to go get their own update. Which is not a traditional method that we use, but it was something new that I noticed we used yesterday or day before, whenever it was.
Yeah, but that's actually easier because now you've actually just got a pull down system. So it makes it a lot easier for them, doesn't it? To say,
yeah.
Oh, yeah, there it is. It's just on the screen. Krishna's got a nice question here. And guys, we're coming up to time. So any last questions, please, either I can see, hey, Fabio, it's nice to see your face. That's cool. Nice to see your COVID beard coming in. How do you deal with upskilling people during this period, especially for skill sets that aren't traditionally taught online?
Well, I'm going to let me. So me has actually just implemented something to this regard, exactly for this reason, plus the social distancing, plus so we can spread people out. Like I said, we have on-site teams. But anyway, I'll let me go into that one. How are you upskilling the staff, Mia? Your courts thing. You're putting people.
Yeah. So we've established a couple of smaller sites. And again, if people are comfortable to come in and comfortable to work from that workplace, so they can go at a site. It actually offers multiple services, channel types. So at the courts, for example, in the morning they'll be taking phone calls. In the middle of the day, they'll be doing booking appointments. So people come in with their appointments booked. And in the afternoon, they'll be doing city-based drop-ins to on-site support. So realistically, the technology that we have is so good with the screen sharing and all that, that anything that you can do that isn't hands-on physical can be taught by a buddy up system. And we do have a lot of, we call them team reps. So the team rep is like a very knowledgeable IT person, and the team reps are there available to talk and train and troubleshoot with our service delivery officers in real time, and also to provide follow-up training if they need to, and they can do that remotely. But for on-site type stuff, like today, for example, somebody needed to learn how to, when you get a computer, like a real boxy computer, and you make it blank and then you do something with it. Anyway, they had to do it on site. So they came in just for that training. And we're all socially distanced, we're all sanitized, all that kind of stuff. So they came in just to learn that, and then off they go to work at home or work off-site again. So there's some things that you can't get around, yes, the physical stuff. But for the most part, a lot of the systems, it's the problems are an online thing.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So anyone else want to come off mute and ask a question at all? Last question call. I was going to say last drinks call because it is afternoon for you guys. I'm still on coffee mode. No? Okay. Oh, got a couple of really good comments, just, thank yous and for sharing and all of that sort of thing. So very much thank you, Mia. Thank you, Craig, for participating and being our second challengers on here and your experience and ideas, because I think it's been incredibly informative. It's been really interesting to hear how models and reporting or the people stuff, all of those things that we do find difficult. So, and I think you're actually coming up with some really cool, innovative ways of working. You're all HDAA members here. So, connect and network Stay in touch. If you're not on in LinkedIn with people, add a note to your LinkedIn invitation. Say, hey, I was on the Challenge 2 session.
You might have actually noticed pre-COVID, probably January, maybe December, we actually didn't mail out to the HDAA members on their thoughts on a decentralised service desk. And that sort of research that we did at that time, actually, that's how we did this, the service point model and the hub-based model. It was all based on that research. So it was all timing. Like, I don't know if you recall when that came out, but I think it was January. So we actually came out for questions.
See, there you go. I think that's something that we can take advantage of. So yeah, link up, tell each other why or what's your particular issue, or what did you find the most interesting, or what was the biggest benefit you got out of today's session? What was the one thing that piqued your interest the most, or what's the idea that you're going to grab and run with? That kind of stuff. It's always good to know that. So thank you very much, everyone. Really appreciate your time and attendance, and stay safe, stay well, and stay tuned, because we have Challenge Series 3 coming up in another month's time. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon.